The great chamber floated in the darkness of space, a massive structure of crystal and metal that caught the light of distant stars. Inside, representatives from 47 different species sat in their designated positions. Some breathed oxygen, others methane. Some had scales. Others had feathers or smooth skin that changed colors. This was the Galactic Council, and they had maintained peace across thousands of worlds for 50,000 years. High Chancellor Vexthar stood at the center podium. His insect-like body clicked and chittered as he spoke through his translator device. The trade dispute between the Zolian Mining Collective and the Petra Agricultural Consortium will now be. An alarm shrieked through the chamber. Red lights pulsed along every wall. The representatives jumped from their seats, their various forms of expressing shock filling the air with sounds ranging from hisses to melodic chimes. "What is happening?" demanded Admiral Kronax, his reptilian form rising to its full imposing height. His hand moved instinctively toward where his ceremonial weapon would have been. But weapons were forbidden in the council chambers. A technician rushed to the main display screen, her 6 fingers dancing across holographic controls. "Chancellor, it's the quarantine network. Sector 7G has activated." The chamber fell silent. Even the species that communicated through scent or color stopped their nervous displays. Archivist Eula, whose people resembled tall, willowy beings made of something like flowing water, spoke in a voice that trembled. "That system hasn't been active in 50,000 years. It cannot be operational." "Show us," Vexthar commanded, his compound eyes reflecting the red warning lights. The central display filled with data. Mathematics scrolled past. Equations that described the fundamental forces of the universe. Physics that several species in the chamber had only theorized about. And then, most impossible of all, a working design for faster-than-light communication that violated everything the Council's best scientists believed possible. "Where is this signal coming from?" Kronax demanded, his tail lashing behind him. The technician's voice was barely a whisper. "From the third planet of System Sol, from Earth." The chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives shouted in their native languages. Some fled toward the exits. Others activated personal communication devices trying to reach their home worlds. Vexthar slammed his forelimb against the podium and the sound echoed like a gunshot. "Silence. Everyone return to your positions immediately." Slowly, order returned, but fear hung in the air like smoke. "That world was sterilized," said Representative Quinn, a being whose crystalline form hummed with agitation. "We all know the histories. The humans were eliminated before they could develop space travel." "Apparently," Eula said quietly, "we were wrong." Vexthar turned to the archivist. "Bring up the historical records. Everything we have on the human elimination protocol." Eula moved to her station and soon the display showed images from 50,000 years ago. Primitive cities on a blue and green world. Beings that walked on 2 legs with soft skin and hair on their heads. They had just discovered agriculture. They had just begun to write their histories, and the Council had decided they were too dangerous to live. "The report was clear," Vexthar said, reading from the ancient documents. "The human species showed unprecedented aggression, rapid technological advancement, and disturbing adaptability. They made weapons from everything they touched. They fought each other constantly, but also formed bonds that transcended logic. The projections showed that if they reached the stars, they would be unstoppable. So we murdered them," Eula said, her watery form rippling with emotion. "We burned their world from orbit. We shattered their cities. We boiled their oceans. We protected the galaxy," Kronax growled. "Or so we believed." The display changed again. Now it showed the current signal in detail. Buried within the mathematical formulas and physics lessons was something else. A message. The technician isolated it and played it through the chamber's audio system. The same words repeated in 47 different languages, one for each council species. When it reached galactic standard, everyone understood. "We remember. We survived. We're coming." A junior representative, barely more than a juvenile from the Klee species, raised a tentacle. Perhaps they wished to talk? To establish peaceful contact? Vexthar's laugh was harsh and clicking. "They sent us technology we don't possess. They broadcast it on a frequency that should be impossible, and they did it from a world we tried to destroy. Does that sound like they want to talk?" "But they haven't attacked," Eula pointed out. "They sent knowledge, not weapons. Mathematics, not missiles." "They sent a warning," Kronax said. "They want us to know they're coming. They want us to be afraid." Are they justified in wanting revenge? Eula asked quietly. We tried to exterminate their entire species. Every man, woman, and child. We didn't even give them a chance to prove they could be peaceful. That debate is 50,000 years too late, Vexthar snapped. The question now is, what do we do? The chamber filled with arguing voices again. Some called for immediate military mobilization. Others suggested trying to establish communication. A few even proposed evacuating the nearest systems and hoping the humans wouldn't pursue them across the galaxy. Finally, Vexithar restored order once more. We will convene the Defense Committee immediately. All military assets are to be placed on high alert. And someone find out how far away they are and how long we have before they arrive. The technician's voice cut through the planning. Chancellor, there's more to the signal. A second layer of data. Show us. The display filled with star maps, system after system, marked with human symbols. The technician's voice shook as she explained. These are colonized worlds. If this data is accurate, the humans have already established settlements in 30 different star systems. That's impossible, someone shouted. We would have detected them. Apparently, Eula said again, we were wrong about many things. Vexithar stared at the star map, at the red dots representing human colonies, scattered like drops of blood across the galaxy. Some were close to council space. Some were in regions they thought were empty. The humans had been hiding in plain sight, growing stronger while the council believed them extinct. They've been watching us, Kronax realized. All this time they've been out there watching and waiting and preparing. The message played again in the background, repeating in language after language. We remember. We survived. We're coming. For the first time in 50,000 years, the Galactic Council knew fear. 50,000 years ago, the sky had burned. Great ships appeared above Earth, blotting out the sun. They came without warning, without communication, without mercy. The weapons they unleashed were beyond anything humans could comprehend. Cities that had taken generations to build vanished in pulses of light. Mountains melted. Oceans boiled. The atmosphere itself caught fire. In those terrible days, humans ran. Some fled to deep caves, crawling into the bones of the Earth itself. Others dove into the deepest parts of the ocean, finding refuge in underwater trenches where the boiling water couldn't reach. A few, the most desperate or most clever, managed to launch themselves away from Earth in primitive vessels, scattering into space like seeds on the wind. The Council's bombardment lasted for weeks. When they finally stopped, confident that nothing could have survived, they left behind a broken world wrapped in ash and smoke. The Council marked Earth as a dead planet and moved on with their business. They never checked. They never came back. That was their first mistake. In the deep places, humans survived. They ate fungus that grew in the dark. They drank water from underground rivers. They had children who never saw the sun. And they told stories about the day the sky burned. Stories about the monsters from the stars who tried to kill them all. Stories that became legends, then myths, then eventually something that seemed too terrible to be true. But humans never forgot. Not really. Captain Sarah Chen stood in the command center of Phoenix Station, deep beneath what had once been the Pacific Ocean. The station had been built over centuries, expanded generation after generation by humans who refused to die. Around her, holographic displays showed the vastness of space and the fruits of humanity's secret labor. The broadcast has been sent, reported Dr. James Morrison, adjusting his glasses as he studied the data flowing across his screen. The Council received it approximately 17 minutes ago. And their response? Sarah asked, her dark eyes fixed on the display showing the Council's chamber. They had cameras there. They had cameras everywhere the Council operated. The aliens had no idea how long humanity had been watching them. Panic, mostly, James said with a thin smile. Just as we expected. They're mobilizing their military, arguing among themselves. A few are even suggesting evacuation. Sarah nodded slowly. She was young for her position, only 35, but she had been preparing for this moment her entire life. Every human had. From the time they could walk, they learned the truth about the universe. They learned that they were not alone and that their neighbors had tried to murder them before they could even say hello. "Show me Earth," she commanded. The display changed. The planet that filled the screen looked peaceful enough from space. Blue oceans, green and brown continents, white clouds swirling in familiar patterns. But if you knew where to look, you could see the scars. Massive craters where cities had been, strange colors in the rocks where the heat had transformed them into glass, and floating in orbit, looking exactly like Earth's natural moon, was humanity's greatest secret. "Luna Base reports ready status," said Commander Williams, a gray-haired woman who had spent 40 years preparing for this day. "All weapon systems are operational. All ships are ready to launch," Sarah smiled. The Council thought Earth's moon was just a dead rock, a natural satellite that had orbited the planet for billions of years. They had never looked closely. They had never noticed the energy signatures hidden deep inside, or the thousands of ships concealed beneath the surface, or the weapons that could crack planets. Humanity had turned their moon into the largest warship in the galaxy, and the Council had no idea. "What about the colonies?" Sarah asked. James pulled up another display. Red dots appeared across the star map, each one representing a human settlement. All 30 colonies are secure and hidden. Most of them have been established for over 200 years, some for longer. The generation ships worked exactly as planned. It had been humanity's backup plan. While they rebuilt on Earth and prepared for the day they would reveal themselves, they had also sent out slower-than-light ships, packed with frozen embryos and artificial intelligence caretakers. Those ships had traveled for centuries, spreading humanity across the stars like dandelion seeds in the wind. If the Council found Earth again and finished what they started, humans would still survive elsewhere. But the Council never found them. They never even looked. That was their second mistake. "How long until we make contact?" Sarah asked. "The first diplomatic team will arrive at the neutral station in 72 hours, James replied. "But we need to decide how much to reveal. Do we show them everything? Our numbers, our technology, our capabilities?" Sarah was quiet for a moment, thinking. On the wall of her office there was an old photograph, preserved carefully for thousands of years. It showed a human city before the bombardment. Tall buildings, busy streets, people living their lives without knowing that death was coming from the sky. Below the image, someone long ago had written words in ancient English, "Never again." "We show them enough to make them afraid," Sarah said finally. "We show them that we're not the primitive species they tried to exterminate. We show them that we survived everything they threw at us and came out stronger. But we keep our full capabilities secret. Let them wonder. Let them fear what else we might have hidden." "And if they attack?" Commander Williams asked. "Then we remind them why they were afraid of us in the first place," Sarah replied coldly. James pulled up another file, this one containing records that humanity had discovered while exploring the galaxy in secret. "There's something else they need to know. We found evidence of 12 other species that the Council eliminated. 12 civilizations that were destroyed for the same reasons they tried to destroy us. The Council has been doing this for hundreds of thousands of years." Sarah felt anger burning in her chest. 12 other species. 12 other worlds full of people with families and dreams and hopes, all erased because the Council decided they were too dangerous. How many others had there been? How many civilizations had been murdered before they could even leave their home worlds? "We'll bring that evidence to the negotiations," she decided. "The Council needs to answer for all their crimes, not just what they did to us." A junior officer approached, looking nervous. "Captain, we're receiving requests from the colonies. They want to know if they should reveal themselves or stay hidden." Sarah considered this. The colonies were humanity's insurance policy. If something went wrong, if the Council somehow managed to destroy Earth again, those hidden settlements would survive to carry on the fight. But keeping them secret also meant keeping humans divided at a time when they needed to show unity and strength. "Tell them to stay hidden for now," she ordered. "We'll reveal the colonies when the time is right. Let the Council think we only have Earth. Let them think we're smaller and weaker than we really are. They're going to be very upset when they find out the truth," James said with grim satisfaction. "Good," Sarah replied. "They should be upset. They should be terrified. They tried to commit genocide, and their victims survived and thrived despite everything. If that doesn't terrify them, nothing will." She looked at the image of Earth again, at the beautiful blue planet that had suffered so much. 50,000 years of surviving in the dark, 50,000 years of rebuilding, 50,000 years of preparing, and now finally it was time. "Send a second message to the Council," Sarah commanded. "Tell them we're ready to talk. Tell them we're willing to discuss peace. But also tell them this: we're not the helpless species they remember. We're not asking for permission to exist. We're informing them that we're here, we're staying, and they need to make room for us." As the message was prepared and sent, Sarah allowed herself a small smile. The Council had tried to end humanity before they could reach the stars. Instead, they had created an enemy that spent 50,000 years learning how to survive anything, planning for every possibility, and preparing for the day of reckoning. The humans were coming. And the galaxy would never be the same. The Council's emergency war fleet assembled faster than anyone thought possible. 3,000 ships gathered at the edge of neutral space, their weapons charged and their crews ready. Admiral Kronak stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the viewport with his cold reptilian eyes. Somewhere out there the humans were coming. He intended to finish what the Council had started 50,000 years ago. "All ships report ready," his second-in-command announced. "We have enough firepower to sterilize 100 worlds." "Good," Kronax growled. "This time we make certain. No survivors, no second chances." But not everyone in the Council agreed with Kronax's approach. Archivist Eula had spent the last 3 days arguing passionately for diplomacy. "We tried to commit genocide," she had told the Council chamber, her watery form trembling with emotion. "We murdered billions of innocent beings because we were afraid. And we were wrong. They survived despite everything we did to them. Don't you see? We're the monsters in this story, not them." Her words had caused divisions. Younger species, those who had joined the Council in the last 20,000 years, questioned why the humans had been targeted in the first place. What had they done to deserve extermination? The answer was nothing. They had simply existed and shown potential. That made many Council members uncomfortable. Meanwhile, in the neutral station at the border of Council space, Captain Sarah Chen stepped off her shuttle. She wore a simple blue uniform with no weapons and no armor. Behind her came Dr. James Morrison and Commander Williams. They walked calmly through corridors filled with various alien species, all of whom stopped to stare at the humans who shouldn't exist. The meeting room was large and circular, with representatives from 20 different Council species already waiting. High Chancellor Vexthar stood at the center, his insect form bristling with barely contained aggression. "So," he clicked through his translator, "the ghosts have come to haunt us." Sarah smiled pleasantly and took a seat at the table without being invited. "Not ghosts, Chancellor, survivors, there's a difference." "You should not exist," Vexithar stated flatly. "You were eliminated." "You tried," Sarah corrected. "But humans are difficult to kill. You should have done better research." She activated a holographic display from her wrist device. Images filled the air above the table. Pictures of Earth before the bombardment. Images of the attack itself, saved somehow through 50,000 years. Pictures of humans crawling from caves, rebuilding, surviving. And finally, images of the 30 colony worlds scattered across the galaxy. "For 500 years we've been watching you," Sarah continued. "We've observed your Council meetings. We've monitored your communications. We've studied your technology and your weaknesses. And we've been growing stronger while you thought us dead." Representative Quinn, the crystalline being, spoke up. "The colonies. How is this possible? We would have detected generation ships." "Would you?" James asked mildly. "Or did you simply not look? You marked Earth as dead and moved on. You never checked to see if anyone escaped. You never followed up to make certain your genocide was complete. Sloppy work, really." Vexthar slammed his forelimb on the table. "You dare to lecture us? You are 3 representatives from a primitive species that barely survived. We have 3,000 warships waiting at the border. We have weapons that can burn worlds. What do you have?" Sarah's smile never wavered. "Let me show you." She pressed a button on her device. Throughout Council space, alarms began to sound. On Vexthar's communication screen, reports flooded in from every major Council world. Human ships had appeared in orbit. Not just a few ships. Hundreds. They had been there all along, hidden by stealth technology the Council couldn't detect. And now they revealed themselves, sitting in orbit above every important Council planet, demonstrating that they could have struck at any time. "We have patience," Sarah said quietly. "We have preparation, and we have the ability to be anywhere we want, whenever we want, without you knowing until we choose to reveal ourselves." The Council representatives around the table looked terrified. Their homeworlds were under threat right now, and they hadn't even known it until this moment. "This is an act of war," Kronax roared over the communication channel. "No," Sarah corrected. "This is a demonstration. If we wanted war, your ships would already be debris. Your worlds would already be burning. Instead, we're talking. That should tell you something about our intentions. Eula spoke up, her voice shaking. What do you want? Justice, Sarah replied simply. We want accountability for what you tried to do to us. We want a seat at the council, so we can ensure you never do this to another species again, and we want to know why you thought genocide was an acceptable solution to your fear. She activated another display. This time it showed ruins. Ancient ruins on dead worlds scattered throughout the galaxy. Civilizations that had been destroyed long ago. And beside each image she placed data that humanity had recovered from those ruins. 12 other species, Sarah said. 12 other civilizations that you eliminated over the millennia. All for the same reason you tried to eliminate us. They were evolving too quickly. They were too aggressive. They showed too much potential. So you murdered them before they could become threats. The room fell silent. Several council representatives looked shocked. Others looked away, unable to meet Sarah's gaze. Eula was openly weeping, her watery form rippling with grief. We didn't know. One of the younger species representatives whispered. We weren't told about this. Of course you weren't, James said. The council kept it classified. But we found the evidence. We recovered data from the ruins. We even found something else. Sarah pressed another button. A door at the side of the meeting room opened. Through it walked beings that looked similar to the crystalline Quinn but different. Older perhaps, or from a different evolutionary branch. They moved slowly, still adjusting to being awake after thousands of years in stasis. We found survivors, Sarah explained. Frozen in stasis pods that somehow survived the bombardment of their world. We woke them. We cared for them. We gave them back their lives. This is Keeper Zoe and his family. The last survivors of the Quell civilization, which the Council destroyed 43,000 years ago. Keeper Zoe spoke, his voice rough from disuse but clear. My people developed faster than light travel 2 years before the Council arrived. We were preparing to explore the galaxy. Instead, we died. All of us except for 12 who happened to be in deep space when the attack came. We froze ourselves, hoping someone would find us. The humans did. The humans saved us when our own galactic neighbors murdered us. The council representatives looked horrified. Vexthar tried to speak but couldn't find words. So here's what's going to happen, Sarah said, her voice hard now. You're going to grant humanity full council membership. You're going to grant the same to the Quell survivors and any other species we managed to resurrect from your past crimes. You're going to establish new laws against this kind of preventive genocide. And you're going to do it because if you don't, we'll make sure every species in the galaxy knows what you really are. We'll show them the evidence, we'll introduce them to the survivors, and we'll let them decide if the council deserves to continue existing. You're blackmailing us, Vexthar hissed. We're giving you a chance to be better, Sarah corrected. Something you never gave us. Commander Williams leaned forward. And just so we're clear, are ships in orbit around your worlds? They're under orders not to fire unless fired upon first. We don't want war, Chancellor. We want peace, but we'll have it on our terms, not yours. Eula moved closer to the holographic display, studying the images of the dead civilizations. How many more are out there? She asked quietly. How many other species did we destroy? We found evidence of 12, James replied. But there could be more. We'll need access to the full council archives to know for certain. A junior council member, one of the species that had only recently joined, stood up. I move that we accept the human demands. All of them. What we did was wrong. What we've been doing for millennia was wrong. It needs to stop. Seconded, said another voice, then another. The younger species, those who hadn't been part of the ancient decisions, rallied to the human cause. But Vexthar and the older council members looked furious. This is not over, the Chancellor hissed. You may have won today, but there are those who will never accept your presence. Sarah stood, her expression serious. Then they'll have to learn to live with disappointment. We survived your worst. We thrived despite your cruelty. We're here now and we're not going anywhere. The question is whether you'll accept that peacefully or whether we have to demonstrate just how powerful we've become. As if to punctuate her point, one of the human ships in orbit performed a jump. It vanished from one location and appeared in another, moving through space in a way that should have been impossible. The Council's best scientists had been trying to perfect instant jump technology for thousands of years. Humans had apparently solved it. The message was clear. Humanity had surpassed them. The species they had tried to destroy was now more advanced than their destroyers. Sarah gathered her team and prepared to leave. We'll give you 1 week to make your decision. Vote to accept us or we reveal everything to the galaxy. Choose wisely, Chancellor. As the humans left, Eula approached Keeper Zoe. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry for what my people helped do to yours. The old Quell survivor looked at her with sad eyes. The humans have a saying. They say that those who forget history are doomed to repeat it. Perhaps it's time the Council remembered its history. All of it. Even the parts that bring shame. Archivist Eula worked through the night. Her watery form hunched over the ancient data storage systems deep within the Council's main archives. She had clearance to access these files. She had always had clearance. She had simply never thought to look before. Now she couldn't stop looking, and what she found made her wish she could unsee it all. The files went back hundreds of thousands of years, species after species, each one marked as a potential threat, or evolving too rapidly, or showing dangerous levels of aggression. The Council had monitored them, studied them, and then, when they reached a certain threshold of development, eliminated them, always before they could develop space travel, always before they could defend themselves, always with the excuse that it was for the greater good of galactic peace. The humans had been right. There weren't just 12 extinct civilizations. There were 37 species wiped from existence because they might someday become dangerous. 37 worlds full of children and artists and dreamers and lovers, all turned to ash because of fear and paranoia. Eula's translator device recorded everything she found. She copied files, images, reports, and strategic assessments. The evidence was overwhelming and damning. And tomorrow, the Council would vote on whether to accept humanity's demands. They needed to see this. All of them needed to know what they had truly been part of. She sent the files to every Council member's personal device. There would be no hiding this. No more secrets. Across the galaxy, on a human colony world called New Hope, Dr. Sarah Chen's mother walked through a forest that shouldn't exist. The trees had been brought from Earth, carefully preserved seeds that had been planted here 200 years ago. Now they grew tall and strong, creating a canopy that filtered the light of an alien sun. Elizabeth Chen had been born on this world. She had never seen Earth except in pictures, but she knew the stories. Every human did, her communicator chimed. It was her daughter calling from the neutral station. Mom, we did it. The Council is panicking. They're fighting among themselves. Some want to accept us, others want to fight. But we've got them off balance. Elizabeth smiled. Your grandmother would be proud. She survived the bombardment, you know. She was in Deep Ocean Research Station when the attack came. She spent 3 years underwater before it was safe to surface. She used to tell me about the old world before the sky burned. She made me promise to never forget and to never forgive. There was silence on the line for a moment. Do you think we should forgive them, Mom? If they accept our demands and change their ways? Elizabeth looked up at the trees, at the birds that had been gene-engineered to survive on this world's atmosphere, at the distant mountains that reminded her of pictures of Earth. I think, she said slowly, that forgiveness is earned, not given. They need to prove they've changed. They need to acknowledge what they did, and they need to make sure it never happens again. If they do all that, then maybe, but not before. I love you, Mom. I love you too, sweetheart. Show them what humans are made of. Back at the Council chambers, chaos reigned. Representatives shouted at each other in dozens of languages. Eula's files had spread like wildfire. Everyone had seen them now. Everyone knew the truth. A representative from the Kelvin species, a young civilization that had joined the Council only 5,000 years ago, stood on her platform with all 4 of her arms raised. This is genocide. Multiple genocides. How can we claim to be a force for peace when we've been committing these atrocities for millennia? An older representative, one of the founding species, tried to defend the decisions. Those were different times. The galaxy was more dangerous. We did what we thought was necessary to maintain stability. Stability? Another voice shouted. You murdered billions to maintain stability? You destroyed entire civilizations because they might become threats? That's not stability, that's tyranny. High Chancellor Vexthar tried to restore order, but even his supporters were wavering. The evidence was too strong. The crimes were too clear. And worst of all, the humans had forced them to confront it publicly. There would be no sweeping this under the carpet. No quietly forgetting and moving on. The whole galaxy was watching. Admiral Kronak, still commanding the fleet at the border, received reports of what was happening. His ships were on high alert, ready to attack on his command. But he also saw the human vessels in orbit around Council worlds. They hadn't moved. They hadn't threatened. They simply waited, demonstrating that they could strike at any moment but choosing not to. It infuriated him. He wanted to paint them as monsters, as the aggressive species that justified the Council's past actions, but they weren't cooperating. They were being patient, reasonable, and restrained. They were proving that the Council had been wrong about them. His second-in-command approached carefully. "Admiral, we're receiving requests from multiple Council worlds. They're asking us to stand down. They say the humans aren't threatening them. Yet," Kronak snarled, "they aren't threatening them yet. With respect, sir, they've had their ships in position for days. If they wanted to attack, they would have done so already." Kronak's tail lashed in frustration because he knew it was true. The humans were winning without firing a shot. They were defeating the Council with evidence, patience, and moral superiority. It was humiliating. On Earth, in the command center beneath the ocean, Commander Williams monitored the situation carefully. "We're receiving intelligence that some of the hardline Council members are planning something. They're not willing to accept defeat." Captain Chen, who had returned from the neutral station, studied the reports. "And what kind of something?" "A coup, possibly. They're coordinating with military forces loyal to the old guard. If the vote doesn't go their way, they might try to seize control of the Council by force." Sarah exchanged glances with Dr. Morrison. "And if they succeed, then we'll be at war," James said grimly. "A real war this time, not just a standoff." Sarah made a decision. "Alert all our ships. Prepare for possible hostile action. But maintain current positions and do not fire unless fired upon. If they start a coup, we don't want to be the ones who escalated to violence." "What if they target our diplomats?" Williams asked. "Then we respond appropriately," Sarah replied, her voice cold. "We've been patient. We've been reasonable. But if they kill our people, we'll show them exactly why their ancestors feared us." The vote was scheduled for the following day. Throughout that night, Council members argued, debated, and wrestled with their consciences. Some, like Eula, believed that accepting humanity was not just necessary but morally right. Others feared what it meant to admit that the Council had been committing atrocities for hundreds of thousands of years. A few, like Vexthar, simply couldn't accept that they had been wrong. In a private meeting room, several of the hardline members gathered. Vexthar addressed them, his compound eyes glinting in the low light. "If we allow the humans to join the Council, everything changes. Our authority will be questioned. Our past actions will be investigated. Species we've kept under control will rebel. The order we've maintained for so long will collapse. So what do you propose?" asked one of his allies, a being made of living rock. "We take control before the vote can happen," Vexthar said. "We declare a state of emergency. We remove the weak members who would vote for the humans. We consolidate power among those who understand that the old ways kept the galaxy safe. And the humans? Once we control the Council, we finish what we started 50,000 years ago. We mobilize every ship we have and we burn Earth until nothing remains. Not this time with restraint. This time we make absolutely certain." The conspirators agreed. They would act at dawn, before the scheduled vote. They would save the Council from itself, even if it meant destroying it in the process. But they made one critical mistake. They assumed the humans were only watching the official channels. They didn't know that humanity had infiltrated the Council's system so thoroughly that there was almost nothing they couldn't see or hear. The conspiracy was discovered before it could even truly begin. Sarah received the intelligence with cold fury. "They're planning to kill our diplomats and attack Earth, after everything we've done to avoid violence." "What are your orders?" Williams asked. Sarah stood, looking at the display showing Earth hanging in space, beautiful and scarred. She thought about her grandmother, who had survived in darkness for 3 years. She thought about the 50,000 years of struggle and survival. She thought about the 37 extinct species who never got a second chance. "We stop them," she said. "We don't let them start another genocide. Not against us and not against anyone else ever again. Prepare to move against the conspiracy, non-lethal force if possible. But if they attack first, if they threaten our people or our world, then we respond with everything we have." Around the galaxy, hidden human forces began to move. Ships changed positions. Marines in stealth armor prepared for possible boarding actions. Weapon systems that had been offline for 50,000 years hummed to life. Humanity had wanted peace. They had tried for peace, but they were also ready for war. The humans had learned many things during their 50,000 years of survival. They had learned patience and preparation. They had learned science and strategy, but most importantly, they had learned that the greatest strength was not the willingness to fight, but the wisdom to know when fighting was necessary. And they had learned never to let someone try to kill them twice. Dawn broke over the council chambers, though dawn was an arbitrary concept in a structure floating in the vacuum of space. The Great Hall filled with representatives preparing for the most important vote in galactic history. Some arrived hopeful. Others arrived resigned. All of them arrived unaware that several of their colleagues had planned to ensure the vote never happened. High Chancellor Vexthar stood at his podium, looking calm and composed. Behind him, hidden in corridors and maintenance shafts, his loyal forces waited for his signal. Once given, they would seal the chambers, remove the troublesome members who sympathized with humanity, and declare martial law. It would be swift. It would be decisive. It would save the council from its own weakness. He raised his forelimb to begin the session, the signal that would start both the vote and the coup. Council members, he began, we gather today to decide. The lights went out, emergency systems activated, bathing the chamber in red light. But before anyone could panic, the main display activated on its own. Captain Sarah Chen's face appeared larger than life, looking down at the assembled council members with an expression of disappointment and determination. Chancellor Vexthar. Her voice echoed through the chamber. We know about your coup. We know about the forces you've hidden in the maintenance corridors. We know about your plan to kill our diplomats and attack Earth. And we're here to tell you that it's over. Stand down now or we'll make you stand down. Vexthar's compound eyes widened in shock. Around the chamber, several council members looked confused while others looked guilty. The conspiracy had been exposed. This is an internal matter, Vexthar tried to assert. You have no authority here. You're right, Sarah agreed. We have no authority. But we have something better. We have the ability to stop you. And we have the moral obligation to do so. You tried to commit genocide once. We won't let you try again. Throughout the council chambers, human Marines appeared. They had been there all along, invisible in stealth suits that bent light around them. Now they revealed themselves, surrounding Vexthar's hidden forces before they could even react. The coup collapsed before it could begin, neutralized without a single shot fired. But Vexthar, desperate and furious, activated his personal communicator. Admiral Kronax, execute attack plan Omega. Destroy Earth, destroy it now! At the border, on board his flagship, Admiral Kronax received the order. For a moment he hesitated. He looked at his tactical display, at the 3,000 ships under his command, at the route to Earth that would take them through systems filled with innocent civilians. He thought about the evidence of past genocides. He thought about the 37 extinct species. He thought about what history would say about him if he followed this order. Admiral? His second-in-command prompted. What are your orders? Kronax closed his eyes. When he opened them, he had made his decision. Send a message to all ships. Stand down. Deactivate weapons. We will not be firing today. But the Chancellor ordered. The Chancellor, Kronax interrupted, his voice tired, is attempting to start a war that we cannot win and should not fight. I will not be responsible for another genocide. Transmit my refusal to High Command. I will face whatever consequences come. In the council chambers, Vexthar received the news that his military had refused to follow his orders. His carefully planned coup had fallen apart. Around him, council members who had been unaware of the conspiracy looked horrified and betrayed. Those who had been part of it looked defeated. Archivist Yulla stepped forward, her watery form rippling with barely contained emotion. Chancellor Vexthar, I move that you be removed from office immediately for attempting to subvert the democratic process and for conspiring to commit genocide. All in favor? The vote was nearly unanimous. Only a handful of the old guard refused, and even they looked uncertain. Vexthar was stripped of his position and placed under arrest, along with the other conspirators. For the first time in the Council's history, its own leadership would face trial for their crimes. With Vexthar removed, Yulla temporarily assumed leadership. She looked up at Sarah's image on the display. Captain Chen, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I formally apologize for the attempted coup and for the historical crimes that have been revealed. We are ready to proceed with the vote, Sarah nodded. Then proceed. The galaxy is watching, the vote was called. Should humanity be granted full council membership? Should the survivors of extinct species be granted the same? Should new laws be enacted to prevent future genocides? One by one, representatives cast their votes. The younger species voted yes immediately. Many of the older species hesitated, wrestling with the implications, but eventually voted yes as well. When the count was finished, the result was clear. Humanity would join the council, along with the Quell survivors and any others who could be found and rescued from the ruins of past atrocities. The galaxy erupted in reactions. Some celebrated. Others mourned the end of the old order. But everyone understood that something fundamental had changed. The council that had ruled through fear and preemptive violence was gone. Something new would take its place. In the weeks that followed, trials began for those who had ordered genocides. Vexthar and his co-conspirators faced justice, and the proceedings were broadcast across the galaxy. The evidence was overwhelming. The verdicts were inevitable. Some were sentenced to imprisonment. Others chose exile. All of them would be remembered as the generation that nearly destroyed the council through their own crimes. A new charter was written, with humans and other species working together to create something better. The council was reformed into the Galactic Assembly, with strict laws against preemptive violence, genocide, and the suppression of developing species. Every member world would have equal representation. Every decision would be transparent. Captain Sarah Chen stood before the assembly on the day it was formally established. She had been elected as one of humanity's 3 representatives, along with Dr. James Morrison and Commander Williams. In her hands, she held a small crystal containing data from all 37 extinct species that the old council had destroyed. This crystal, she told the assembled representatives, contains everything we could recover from the civilizations that were murdered. Their art, their science, their hopes, and their dreams. We will build a memorial to them on Earth, where we almost joined them in extinction. We will remember them, and we will make sure that what happened to them and what was attempted against us never happens again. She placed the crystal in a specially prepared chamber at the center of the assembly hall, where it would remain as a permanent reminder of the cost of fear and paranoia. Keeper Zoe, the last survivor of the Quell civilization, also spoke. My people are gone. I am one of only 12 who remain. But with your help, with your genetic technology and your knowledge, we will rebuild. We will have children who carry both our memories and your hope for a better future. You gave us a second chance. Now let us all work together to make sure every species gets their first chance. The memorial on Earth was completed 1 year later. It stood on the site of one of the ancient cities that had been destroyed in the bombardment. Tall pillars rose into the sky, each one representing one of the extinct civilizations. At the base of each pillar was carved a simple phrase in both human and galactic standard languages. We remember. Never again. The memorial became a place of pilgrimage. Species from across the galaxy came to see it, to reflect on the costs of fear, and to recommit to the ideals of the new Galactic Assembly. But humanity didn't become complacent. They kept their fleets. They maintained their colonies, most of which were eventually revealed, though a few remained hidden as insurance. They shared their technology but kept some secrets. And they always watched for signs that the old ways might return. Captain Chen's grandmother, who had survived the bombardment so long ago, lived to see the new assembly established. At age 51,000 years old, sustained by advanced medical technology, she stood at the memorial and wept. I never thought I'd live to see this, she whispered to Sarah. I thought we'd spend eternity hiding in the dark, afraid of the sky. But here we are, in the light, among the stars, finally home. Sarah put her arm around her grandmother. You survived so we could do this. You and everyone who kept humanity alive through all those dark years. This is your victory as much as ours. Years passed. The Galactic Assembly grew stronger. New species joined, all of them welcomed and protected. Humanity became known not just as the species that survived genocide, but as the species that forced the galaxy to be better. They were diplomats and mediators. They were explorers and scientists. They were also warriors, always ready to defend the innocent against those who would harm them. On Earth, children played under skies that would never burn again. They learned about the bombardment in school, not as a fresh wound but as history, something that had shaped their people but no longer defined them. They learned other things too. Resilience, compassion, and the importance of giving others the chances you wished someone had given you. Admiral Kronax, who had refused to fire on Earth, eventually became an ally of humanity. He worked to reform the military branches of the Assembly, ensuring they existed to defend rather than to oppress. He and Captain Chen developed an unlikely friendship, two warriors who had been ready to kill each other but chose peace instead. Archivist Eula devoted the rest of her long life to uncovering more evidence of the old council's crimes and working to make reparations where possible. She found traces of 17 more extinct civilizations. She also found hidden in deep space a few more survivors in stasis. Each recovery was celebrated as a miracle and a victory. On the anniversary of humanity's return, the Assembly held a celebration. Representatives from hundreds of species gathered on Earth, walking through forests that had nearly been destroyed, swimming in oceans that had almost boiled away, and looking up at a moon that was secretly the most powerful warship ever constructed. Sarah Chen, now an elder stateswoman, gave the keynote speech. 50,000 years ago, someone decided that my ancestors were too dangerous to live. They were wrong about many things, but they were right about one. We are dangerous. We're dangerous to tyranny. We're dangerous to injustice. We're dangerous to anyone who thinks they have the right to decide which species deserves to exist. That danger is our promise to the galaxy. As long as humans survive, we will remember what was done to us, and we will make certain it never happens to anyone else. The crowd erupted in cheers that echoed across the planet. In orbit, human ships performed a demonstration of their capabilities, moving in perfect formation, their weapons silent but ready. It was a reminder that humanity's strength came not from aggression, but from the choice to use their power responsibly. As the celebration continued, Sarah stood alone for a moment on a hillside, looking up at the stars. Somewhere up there were the ruins of 37 civilizations that never got their second chance. Somewhere up there were humans on 100 different worlds, spreading across the galaxy like they had always been meant to do. And somewhere up there, perhaps, were other species watching and wondering if they would be next. To all of them, humanity's message was clear. You tried to end us at our weakest. Now meet us at our strongest. We remember. We survived. And we'll make sure you never forget what happens when you try to extinguish the light of hope. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humanity had not just survived. They had won. And in winning, they had changed everything.